This is the video review for Transformers Prime Robots in Disguise Revealer Class Ratchet. And Ratchet's a pretty cool figure, although his weapons are pretty piss poor. They look nice enough in the detail department, but they are just so floppy and bendy. They are just about the worst I've ever seen with this. And not only are they just awful, but they have no way to store on him in robot mode. Now, there are a couple ways to store them in vehicle mode, but really the only thing he can do with these in robot mode is he can hold them as knives, which is okay. He can have them come out of his wrist, which is actually pretty cool, or you can put them onto his shins, which looks awful. So these things, if you don't want them on robot mode, they're off to the side. There's nothing you can really do with them. I mean, I've played with storing them in here, but they just end up getting bent. Like, I tried kind of tapping them onto the nub here and then putting the blade into there. They still didn't stay very well, and it took them about a day to reform to the basically straight shape they need to be. So anyway, onto the figure itself. He looks very nice. I really like the way he looks. I only have two problems with him. One, these forearms on the top should be red like in a show. Although if they did that, then the figure probably wouldn't look right in vehicle mode. So the other problem I have is that I feel like his shoulders are kind of narrow, because the animation model had really broad shoulders, and because I think this guy looks a little bit thin-shouldered. I think this figure would really benefit from just some shoulder extensions. The arms don't necessarily have to go out more, just these go out a little bit more. Although actually if the arms went out a bit more, that would look good too. So anyway, the figure. I really like the way it looks, although this white, this very unpainted looking white, I really wish it were just a bit darker, because the pure whiteness of the figure makes it a little bit hard to really see the figure sometimes, because like if you look at the face, that silver, it's for the most part a nice looking face, but that silver will sometimes just blend in with a white way too much. They did a good job for the shade of white, but if it were just a little bit darker, I think it would have worked so much better. Anyway, one problem I have with this figure is that he is very hollow. There's a cavity in there for his head. The underside of his forearms are hollow. It's hollow back here, and it's hollow in here. So he actually ends up being a very small ambulance, and he expands quite a bit to form this robot mode. It's not a huge robot mode, but you do get the sense of tiny vehicle, giant robot out of this. So for posability, his head can look left and right. A little bit up and down, although that can get annoying at times. The arms will rotate around 360 degrees, and then we'll go in and out, rotate above the elbow, and then you get a nice double jointed elbow. And you can bend the wrist down, which is nice for the blades, or if you had one of drift swords or wheeljack swords in there, he could wield them pretty well, because then he could have the sword pointing straight out. Then you have a waist joint, but it's very tight, and if it's not centered just perfectly, then in vehicle mode he won't be able to bounce. At least one wheel will be off the ground. Then legs go forward, back, out, rotate above the knee, and then you have a double jointed knee here, but it's fairly limited. The best you're going to do is get a little under 90 degrees. And this gray piece here, you can kind of move it back and forth to adjust it just a little bit, but there's really not a whole lot of difference. And then on the toes themselves, well, the feet are cut at a slight angle, just like a lot of the animated figures were. And he doesn't have an ankle tilt side to side, but he does have an ankle tilt forward and back, in the form of you can move the heel back and forth, or the toe back and forth. So he does get a fair amount of stability. I wish he had an ankle tilt, but the feet cut at an angle like that ends up working. So let's see. There are two more flaws of this figure. One, the hollowness in here means that if you press on this part here just through holding him, these panels will come undone, although that's not a huge deal. This part right here is a big problem. You see the hinges here? Those are not pinned. Those hinges are just sort of clip-in hinges, and they come apart very easily. So if they come off and you lose his pieces, you're screwed, because that would ruin the look of his forearms and ruin the look of the ambulance. So do be careful about those. Now finally, to transform this figure is very cool. I really like his transformation. What you do is you will flip these panels out, fold his hands down, flip these panels out, fold these panels down. You'll take this panel and bring it up until you hear the snap, and then you'll push the head down. What happens is that when you're transforming him into robot mode, when this goes down, it'll slide past a button that will make his head rise up. And you don't want the button to get pressed again when you bring this around. So bring it past the button, push this down, and kind of situate that above like this. And then what you will do is, these are on the hinge here, bring them up, and make sure that the gray elbow ends up under this tab here. Otherwise it won't fit right. And then take the forearm, fit it under this plate here, and start pushing it all together up here. Do the same to the other side. Sometimes the parts don't quite like to fit, but if you are careful, you can generally get them around. It's kind of a tight fit in there, but it'll work. And this is the back half of the ambulance. And as you'll notice, the torso area here is at about a 45-degree angle to the actual forward-back axis of the vehicle. What I like about that is that means this is a very smart use of space, because you're getting the full length that going this way provides without needing to have a really long vehicle mode. So that's part of why he's able to go from a really tiny vehicle to a pretty decent sized robot. To continue on, there's not much left to do actually. Fold the toes up like this so that they'll be out of the way. Pop these off from the side in there and start bringing them back. And then what you want to do, this is kind of tricky. There's a little lip here. You want to make sure that lip goes under this part right here. So as you're bringing this back, make sure it goes under, and then clip this into here. So make sure this goes under, and then clip this into here. And then what you want to do is you want to take this tab here, and push them under here, which will clip them together. Do the same to the other side. And then you will bring the foot section around like this. Then tab together the front. Squeeze together, make sure everything's just right, and fold down the feet. It's very neat, and see how he's not quite balanced. That's because well, it may not be because I tilted the waist a little bit. It may be, but it does take a little bit of effort getting him to stay flat. He will stay flat once you get him to stay flat, and he'll stay pretty solidly, but there we go. He's a very nice amber lamps. He's a nice ambulance. He has a fair amount of detailing to him. Nice coloring. He looks pretty accurate to how he did in the show. The only things I don't like is that sometimes the panels don't like to come together as nicely as they should. So you'll get a couple seams are a bit thicker than they should be. And you have this indentation back here that really doesn't seem like it is right. It doesn't seem like that would be there on a real ambulance. It would be just a flat block in there. Oh yes, and one other problem I have is this seam right here. I can never get that to go close. I can push it together as much as I want, but it will just split open just a tiny bit. It's not like the other seams where it's kind of lucky to draw. This never goes closed. So it rolls pretty well. It's quite a stable figure. I like it. For the weapons, you can plug them into the front and give them a stabby vehicle mode, or there are light blue tabs here and here. What you will do is you will put the tabs into those holes on the sides of the weapons. And the weapons will extend down a little bit, but wait a minute. They won't extend past the wheels, so they don't interrupt the rolling of the vehicle. Really, even if they did touch the ground, it's not a big deal for me because I don't like these weapons anyway. I guess you could twist them around the other way so that the blade is facing in. But when I do that, I feel like the blade is being bent in there a little bit. Again, it's not really a big issue because these blades aren't that important to the enjoyment of the figure. But if you are worried about them, then if you like them, if you want to keep them on the figure, then I suppose you may be a little bit concerned. Anyway, this has been the video review for Transformers Prime Robots in Disguise Revealer Class Ratchet. Thank you for watching.